Hi all, so this video is a little bit different to what I would normally do, and it's quite, I would say this is quite a personal video, but it's a video that I feel like I want to share because when I was breastfeeding, I didn't find a lot out there that helped or guided me. For those that are new to my channel, I'm Joanne. I have one daughter, Pollyanna. She's now 15 months old, and I'm currently 21 weeks pregnant with my second baby boy. We found out our gender last week, and you can watch our gender reveal over on my YouTube channel. So please subscribe if you like things fashion and baby and home related. Let me start by kind of touching base on my breastfeeding journey. I'm gonna start by saying mine wasn't a successful breastfeeding journey. And now I'm pregnant again, it's been on my mind a lot as to things I would do differently. So I kind of hope this video is more for those parents out there that are perhaps pregnant and wanting to breastfeed, or those that are struggling. And I hope some of my tips and things that I wish I had done will help you along the way, and also just make you not feel so bad. I feel like there's so many things out there that make us mums feel really guilty for not breastfeeding, and I feel like when you're in that situation, you feel really scrutinized. So I'm just gonna start by talking to you about my breastfeeding journey. It was very short, and I'll touch base on why, and I will kind of tell you things that I wish I had done differently. And now being a mum for over a year, I've kind of read a lot more and I have a better understanding of things, I guess. And I think when you're in that moment, your emotions are very enticed, if that's the right word, heightened. Yes, your emotions are very heightened, and you can't see the end goal. You can just feel how you feel at that moment. And I wish I had somebody that was in my situation to just sit down and be like, it's gonna be okay. Whatever you do, it's gonna be okay. Pollyanna was born by emergency C-section. My labor was something crazy, 20 hours or 18 hours or something like that anyway. And so obviously that amount of time, no sleep, you're very tired. Pollyanna was given to me and she latched onto my boob straight away. And I'll never forget the first nurse saying, oh my goodness, she's latched on straight away, well done. And that's it, not even having a close-up look, kind of just saying it straight away. And I remember saying to Adam, oh my God, this feels so natural, this is amazing. Because I really I thought I was gonna struggle from the get-go. For the first 3 days, you are producing colostrum, and this contains lots of antibodies, lots of vitamins, and just so much goodness for your baby. And I was just so pleased that she was getting that from me. So it all seemed well, and then that night the nurse comes round, checks your baby over, and we were told she has a 85% tongue tie. And that we would receive a letter in the post, but no one ever come in to talk to me. No one ever come in to check how Pollyanna was latching onto my boob, ever. Nobody, even with the tongue tie, which they should have done. Looking back, I should have asked for help. But I think when you've just got a nurse popping their head in and saying, oh, everything's going well, she's latched on, and that's it. You kind of don't want to drag them up. I just didn't, I wish now I had asked for help there and then. They kind of it looked like I'd be holding her breastfeeding, and they would just instantly assume that it was all fine. I remember that first night she was on my boob for 7.5 hours, and again I said to the nurse, I said, is that normal? Is she getting anything, or is that why she's on my boob so much? And she said, oh no, that's absolutely fine, when it's normal for that to happen, which it probably is. She's probably using your nipple as a dummy. And again, no one ever checked or kind of watched how I was doing it. So it's really quite frustrating. So my first point is to, when you're in hospital, even if you think you've got it, which I did, ask. Ask and ask and ask, because once you leave hospital, it's even harder, I think, to get help. So we left hospital, and she had been on my boob that night for like 8 hours almost, and then I always tried to alternate each boob so that it wasn't hurting. So we got home, And then it got to the point which this was when it was a turning point for me. I was dreading feeding time. I was dreading putting Pollyanna on my boob. I had cracked nipples, they were bleeding, they were just so sore. She kept vomiting as well, so she was quite a sicky baby, and at this point I just thought that was normal. And every time she vomited, it would have blood in it. And I was a little bit worried, but it wasn't enough to really worry me. I'd looked on Google and they said that that's quite common, especially if you've got cracked nipples, because they're obviously taking that down. But it's absolutely fine, Google said, and Mumsnet and all those other websites, which it is, I have checked, and that is fine. Third night, Pollyanna was very listless, and it seemed like she'd gone a bit jaundiced, which the midwife had noticed. But this night, I just remember she slept for ages. So we took her up to A&E, and they done heel prick tests. They'd put a drip in her arm, and I remember then like being like, oh, my boobs are so sore. That day I'd started to express, and they do say it takes up to three days or more before milk comes through, and milk was actually coming out. Very slowly, but I was filling up like 2 ounces. But as soon as I was filling it up, she was drinking it. I used the Tommy Tippy electric breast pump, which was absolutely fine. So the fear of putting her onto my boob was horrible. The pain, I just didn't want to do it. So I said to Adam, what do I do? I didn't know what to do. He was so supportive, or everyone was. So I pumped, and I thought, at least if I pump, she's still getting my milk. And I just remember that day pumping all day, sat down pumping, and it just wasn't coming up quick enough. But had I have carried on pumping, it would have happened a lot quicker over the next few days, which I hadn't really taken into consideration. I honestly just felt like a cow being milked all day. And I wasn't really getting lots of cuddles with Pollyanna because I just had this breast pump here, and it wasn't painful. So that was the big difference. So if you are in pain breastfeeding and you've got really, really bad nipples on both, pump for as long as you can, and it will get better. I think that's what I've learned from this. So that night we had to go up to the hospital, and I didn't take the breast pump with me because it just didn't cross my mind. Like, we were in a panic. She had gone really listless. We were trying to wake her up. She wasn't waking up. We knew she had jaundice, and this was quite a common thing to look out for. So we rushed up to A&E. They'd done lots of tests on her, and we were up there for I think an hour and a half, and she was getting hungry. And I looked at Adam and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to put her on my boob. And I felt like, oh my God, useless, because my boobs were so sore, and I'll never forget that feeling. And you never forget that kind of latching on where it hurts so much. So anyway, I did it. We fed in the chair, but after she fed, she projectile vomited so much, and it was blood everywhere, and I was terrified, and Adam was terrified, and Adam doesn't normally get terrified. He's quite calm and quite like, look, it's okay. Well, he was scared. He rushed out. He went and got the doctor and the midwife. They took samples of it away to test that it wasn't coming from Pollyanna's bowel, and that there was nothing wrong with her. And I just, it was just so horrible. The doctor and midwife come back, and they suggested that I stop breastfeeding. It didn't come from Pollyanna's bowel, but it was coming from me, and she was ingesting too much blood, they thought, for her stomach. So I stopped breastfeeding, and I'd come home and I thought, I'm not going to stop breastfeeding, but I'll carry on pumping. So I did try that for another day, and it just, yeah, I gave up. We went to a breastfeeding clinic. So I think everyone has like a local breastfeeding clinic. Ours was only on once a week, and I remember this being like a Monday, and the clinic wasn't open till I think Thursday, Friday, so it was the end of the week. And that is no good. When you're breastfeeding and your boobs are sore and you don't know what to do, you need somebody there and then. You need somewhere to go to help you, to like talk to you and tell you what to do. And that just wasn't available. And I remember I remember calling up the midwife, and they were like, oh, you know, you just need to carry on breastfeeding, it'll get easier. I just remember thinking, it's not easy right now, and it's really, really sore, and I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm dreading Pollyanna waking up, and that was not how I wanted my motherhood to start, dreading your baby waking up. So me and Adam chatted, and he was absolutely so supportive. He did not mind either way, and I knew that no one would have judged me, because I think if you do judge someone based on what they do, you know, you love your baby, you'll do anything for your baby. And I think if you're somebody out there that's going to judge somebody whether on whether they've breastfed or not breastfed, then you need to take a closer look at yourself, I think, because everyone has different opinions. So I just remember deciding to stop, and we did go to the breastfeeding clinic a few days later, and we said about her tongue tie, and they actually said 85% was really, really high, and the doctors didn't want to tongue tie her unless snip the tongue tie unless I was breastfeeding. So my daughter was going to have a tongue tie issue because I couldn't breastfeed, and it could cause problems with her speech, it could have caused problems with her eating, and I just remember thinking, like, how unfair is this? Like, she's 85% tongue-tied and you're not going to do it because I've stopped breastfeeding. So long story short, I lied and I said that I was still breastfeeding, because I just couldn't get my head around it. It was a problem with Pollyanna, she couldn't put her tongue out. And I'm so glad that I'd done that. It also would have been more painful for Pollyanna had we have waited and got it done when she was 8 years old, which is what the NHS recommended. So I am really glad that I did that. And obviously the tongue tie caused problems with breastfeeding, so had they have booked me in straight away to get the tongue tie done and sorted, I may not have had problems with breastfeeding. So I guess what I've learned from this is I wish I didn't give up, and I wish I did carry on pumping. Because my milk flow would have got quicker, but nobody ever told me, nobody ever said, like, maybe they did even, but I think you're just so tunnel visioned by your pain that you kind of just want to stop straight away. And then nobody told me what would happen when you stopped. So I had watermelons for boobs and they were aching. I remember Googling, will my boobs burst? They were so massive and so sore. I couldn't lie down. I think that lasted for 3 days as well. So I went and had a bath. We don't have a bath here, so we only have a shower, but I went and had baths. But the best thing that actually helped was cabbage leaves on my boobs, and I put them in my bra, and yeah, after I think a week my boobs went completely back to normal. But that's just something that they don't tell you. And I kept calling up and asking, like, what happens if I want to stop breastfeeding, what do I do? And no one wanted to tell you, because nobody wants you to stop breastfeeding. So I just, yeah, it was really, really hard. I had to find a lot of stuff on Google, and it just said to kind of stop at first. So when I did stop breastfeeding, because my boobs were getting so full and sore, I was actually squeezing the milk out of my boobs over the sink, thinking that would release the pressure. And it wasn't until I spoke to a really, really helpful nurse, midwife, that come round. I think this is a week after they come round to see you, or 12 days after. And she was like, no, don't do that, because you're still producing your milk. So the more you try and release the milk, the more you are making that supply come back. So you have to just stop, do nothing. And it was her that suggested the cabbage patch leaves. And she was a midwife, and she had actually stopped, not breastfed herself. And I just think that's the kind of person you need. You need your midwife to be open-minded to both, not to pressure you, not to force you, because it's just so, you're already in like such a position that you've never been in before, and you just don't know what to do. It's a whole new world, and the last thing you want is somebody judging you or telling you must do this. Another thing that I was really worried about when I was breastfeeding was my lack of good food and water. So I don't drink a lot of water, and that was something that I would have really had to work on. But also my food intake isn't amazing, but something that I've only just found out a few months ago is that you can actually take breastfeeding supplements to help with your nutrition and to make sure that your baby is getting everything. But that was something to bear in mind that I actually didn't know before. Pollyanna is absolutely happy. We have a great bond. Like, there's no, you would not know. Like, it's just crazy the amount of pressure we put on ourselves to breastfeed. Obviously, it is important, and if you can do it, then great. But for those of you who can't, just don't worry, because it's all gonna be okay. And when you see those adverts that say breast is best, just turn it off, because I remember those adverts were on every single day, and I never noticed them until I gave up breastfeeding. And God, they make you feel like shit. They make you feel like the worst mum in the world, because breast may be best, but so is your happiness. So yeah, I think that's my little rant. We went on to formula after that, and she actually had to go on an anti-reflux formula. So we ended up with a baby that was never sick or like puked on us, which was really quite great. But if you have any questions about my breastfeeding journey or my lack of breastfeeding journey, and yeah, I'm happy to have a little discussion in the comments below. But I think it will be interesting to see what my second breastfeeding journey is like. I hope it's more successful. I would like to do it for a few months. I don't know how long I'll do it. I think it's one of them things you don't know until you're doing it, how long you'll do it for, when you'll stop. But we'll see. I'm definitely not going to put that much pressure on myself this time, because looking at my daughter, she is incredible. She's walking by 8 months, talking, and I just think I put so much pressure on myself to try and give her my boob, and she's absolutely fine. Yep, things that I would recommend having is a breast pump. Even if you're not planning on breast pumping, you're just full on breastfeeding, I'd recommend having one just in case. Also, like the nipple cream that I recommended, because you will get sore boobs, sore nipples even. And just read as much information as you can. I was a little bit naive and just kind of thought that would come naturally and you would get a lot of help in the hospital. You unfortunately won't. Obviously, hospitals are understaffed, and that's just not something you're gonna get, so don't bank on that. Just make sure you're very knowledged up and write down any questions that you have, and don't be afraid to ask. And like I said, even if you think you've got it while you're in the hospital, check and check to make sure. But that's it. So that was my very short and sweet breastfeeding journey, and things that I've learned along the way, from blogs, websites, YouTube videos, nurses that I've spoke to. Yeah, I hope it helps some of you, and just don't feel the pressure from anybody but yourself. No, actually, don't feel the pressure from yourself, because you're actually the person that's going to be more likely to put as much pressure on you than anyone else. So just do what you feel is best for your baby and for you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, like I said, drop me a comment below and I'll get back to you. And until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye.